Today I have the privilege to interview Mrs. Mary Williams-Neal. We are at her residence in Kansas City, Missouri today on October the 1st, 2019. How are you today?
I am blessed today.
Great. Okay, so we want to gather your oral history because we know that you have an astonishing one. So, where were you born?
I was born in Pace, Mississippi, back in the late 40s, and came to Kansas City in April 1969.
Wow. Okay, so when you were born in Mississippi, what was your upbringing like with your parents?
Well, I had a mom and I had a dad. We lived in a very impoverished area. Our population in our neighborhood probably was around 300. We lived in the central part of Mississippi, of course, and we lived in very dilapidated housing. And my mother and my father, neither one of them could read or write until they became older adults. Pick cotton, chop cotton, outside bathroom, you name it. We were exposed to all of that. My dad was a sharecropper. He worked for someone, and of course, working for someone, he never got the ability to earn the kind of money that he should have to have taken care of us. And I believe that's why he became an alcoholic, because he felt so awful that he was not able, to provide for his family the way he should have.
Okay. What was your parents' names?
My dad was Lee Andrew Williams. My mother was Ethel Chapman Williams. And my dad was actually from a little town called Ball, Mississippi. And my mother was from a little town called Cleveland, Mississippi.
Okay. Well, when they were upraising you and you attended school in Mississippi, what was that like?
Well, we could not go to school. During the cotton picking season, for whatever reason, we were, we stayed out of school because we had to pick cotton. And during the chopping cotton season, we stayed out of school for that as well. So it was really disheartening for me because I loved learning, and we had to take care of our family. When we would work, get up sun up, work sun up to sundown, and then we would have someone that would take my father's name and my mother's name and write it down. And they would, say, well, okay, you've worked 10 hours today. And so for that whole 10 hours, we only got $3 for that whole week per person. So, and being a young person, we were also able to work as well. I can remember being out in the fields and someone walking on my heels, and I was so scared because I didn't understand what was happening, just a young girl. And my mother bore a lot of children. Matter of fact, she had 15 children. And my field time, I remember my mother bringing my sisters and brothers to the field. So we had the kids right out there in the field while we was picking and chopping cotton. I was the fourth oldest, and I'm the oldest girl. So I was kind of the person, that kind of took charge of things and kind of was in my mom's place when she wasn't around.
Right. Did you have any friends, or do you still keep in touch with anyone from Mississippi?
I keep in touch with my classmates. The sad part about my life is I was telling my children many, many years ago, I don't remember a lot of my childhood. I just don't. It seems as though that it was just wiped out. And I don't know, just from talking to some people that I know, they say sometimes when you got these issues, in your life, there's a way to protect yourself. So perhaps that's it. I don't know. But I remember going to school. I remember a woman named Jacqueline Trim and a husband named James Trim. And she loved me. As a matter of fact, she looked a lot like you. And she kind of adopted me as a daughter, and she thought I was such a smart girl. So she started helping me, and I would go to her house every day. And usually when we went there, we were always hungry. And so she would feed me, and then she took me on her wings. And my first child name is Jacqueline, so I named her in her honor. And of course, when I got elected on the city council back in 1995, I went to visit her. And so she was still there, and she was so pleased with the accomplishments, that I had made, because she always told me when I was a little girl that I was going to be a star, and it meant nothing to me. And so when I went there, I had all these, business cards with my picture on it, and all the city of Kansas City, Missouri, which is at that time was about 500,000 people. And she just simply couldn't believe it, and we just sat on her bed, and she just cried and cried and cried, because she told me, I knew you were going to get there. So being from, she was Leland. Leland's about 30 miles from where I was. But, most of the towns were small. And so, her husband was the principal of the school. So they would drive in the morning, and then they would take care of the kids. And it was kind of like a rural type area in a sense. But they loved the children. And they were always willing to reach out to the families and help the families grow better.
Okay. So after all that in elementary and middle school, and where did you go to high school, and where did you go to college, and what was that like?
I went to Naylor Middle School, which was actually in Cleveland, Mississippi. And I don't remember a whole lot about it. I just remember that I was very, very smart, because they always told me that I was, and I was actually started managing a little shop, when I was 9 years old, because a lot of people in our community couldn't read. And I was in middle school during that time. And I can recall high school. I went to high school, Eastside High School, and I got pregnant. And then, of course, I had to leave and go to another high school. And I'm not sure whether you've ever heard of Mount Bayou, Mississippi. It's one of the oldest black towns in the state, actually in the United States of America. And so when I got pregnant, I went there, and that's where I graduated from John F. Kennedy Memorial High School. Was some years late, because all the time I probably stayed out of school, or, I was at home, to helping my mom. And so I wasn't able to go to school and graduate. And when I graduated, I believe I was 20 years old when I graduated from high school. But I had a desire to graduate. And then, of course, I moved to St. Louis actually for a year, and stayed in East St. Louis. And the first time that I ever saw anybody that was murdered, and that was a lasting effect on me. And so in April 1969, I moved to Kansas City, Missouri, and I moved in what we call the Washington-Wheatley area. And then I began to learn about community involvement. And so I went to UMKC over there, and I was very well received. I did not finish there, but believe it or not, I'm one of the alumni, and they had the ability to send me to Harvard University. So I had a chance to do that. And usually, if you go there, you have to already have graduated, from college. But they thought I was smart enough to go there. So I went to Harvard University and represented Kansas City for quite some time.
Wow. Now, when you were in Kansas City, how did you get so involved?
Well, to go back a little bit to Mississippi, we were in very oppressed times. And I always had this dream, because we were living in this house, and it would rain in this house like it was raining outside. And I remember us putting, buckets, in the room. It was just four rooms. And of course, we slept on the floor, and all of us kind of slept together. And I remember having this dream about leaving Mississippi. I did not like it there, because I thought that, life was better. You see picture books, and we didn't have television or radio or anything like that. But I had a girlfriend, just happened to be a Caucasian girl, and she was from Chicago. And so she kind of took me on her wings. This is when I was a young girl in middle school, and started showing me the world. And so I started dreaming of the world, what I would want my sisters and brothers to do, and how I would like to affect the world. And so when I got to Kansas City, again, I started talking, and then people recognized that I had something to say. They appreciated it and they honored it. And so I started just going to neighborhood meetings. And every time I would go to a neighborhood meeting, somebody said, well, we want Mary to speak, And I don't know whether it was my heart driven, but my soul was just on fire for making it better for myself, for my family, and for others. And so I started there. I worked with Gates Barbecue, one of the first jobs I got when I was in Kansas City, and started in the training program. And so I met lots of people. I met Bruce Watkins. I met Marion Watkins. I met so many great people. And being there, I met the Dons, Halls, and so meeting all these people, for whatever reason, I became someone that they loved and they wanted to hear from. So when there were community meetings and such things as times down at community gardens or at the city of Kansas City, Missouri, they would ask me to come, and I would think, oh, I'm not qualified for this. But it seemed like I moved people's soul, when I talked. And so I just started. I had so many people wanted to talk to me until I actually had to get me an appointment book. And so I think that my life there in Mississippi have prepared me and motivated me to become someone that cared for myself, of course, and then began to care for my family and then to care for other people. And so I've been really involved. And of course, I can't forget my family. Because I was the oldest girl and because I was there, I was the one that always kind of, telling, encouraging my mom, encouraging my dad and saying, I know we can do this. And, when we were picking cotton and chopping cotton, I was the one that always understood the scales and would always write things down. And I think that helped my other brothers and sisters, because they began to emulate me. They said, well, we want to be like Mary. And of course, working here in Kansas City allowed me to get engaged with McDonald's. I worked for them in management and started at the very, hi, may I help you? Just like I did at Gates Barbecue, and worked there. I was their first black manager. I went all the way to Schaumburg, Illinois, and got all kind of accolades for that. I worked for the Hallmark cards. I was one of their first black models here in Kansas City. And I sold Avon and I worked for Hartsville, and whatever that was available, I did it. And I'm so pleased with the people that accepted me, because one of the things that I learned through life is that people have to accept you and take you where you are. And I think people saw that sense of urgency in me and wanted to be different and wanted to be better and wanted to include other people.
Now, regarding segregation and when you were fighting, or were there any obstacles that you had to overcome with
Oh, yes.
the work that you had to
Oh, yes. People don't believe this, but desegregation is a word that I think is misused, because even in my own community where black people were, I had issues with black people. And a lot of times, some of us, we don't want to make those comments, but we have to let the truth be told and the truth to be spoken. Because I was one of those, quick learners and early starters, there were people who had a little jealousy. And I don't think that they hate me or anything. I just think I was in a position where it kind of took something away from them. And so I really started back in Mississippi where I was in school, because I was a kid in school that was always, up front with the teacher and trying to teach the kids that couldn't read and all of that. And so there was a jealousy there. And then when I went to other places, like across the track in Cleveland, across the track is where most of white families live. And then on the other side of the track is where most black families live. And so we were loved by a lot of white families. I will never forget this. We didn't have very much food to eat. And this one white family, she was a widow, and it was a lot of us. And she would take us to her house, in her house. And at that time, blacks were not welcome, into homes. And she would take us, she had this big old long table like the one that I've got, and she would sit us around that table, and she would feed us, food that I thought was so good, And so we learned that the color of the skin is important, but it's not as important as the heart. And so we had some people there that just looked a little bit different than me, but they loved us. There was another man that kind of got my mother under the wings. He lived in Chicago, but he would come to Mississippi all the time, and he adopted all of us. And every holiday, he would send money to us. One of my best girlfriends that taught me how to ride a horse happened to be white, lived right down the street. And we became best friends, and she taught me so much about her world. I remember going to her house. Her mom was from Mississippi, but her dad wasn't, and he kind of, loved people. And I loved going to her house because she made me feel good. And so her mom didn't, accept me. And they had a dog, and this dog would be, out on the back porch, and they would feed the dog on the back porch. And so I would eat with the dog. And I loved it because it gave me a chance to be with her. But I was able to teach this woman, that just because my skin was dark, that I was beautiful. And so we began to develop a relationship. And so as those years passed, I stopped looking at people's skin color. I started looking at people's heart.
Wow. Okay. So, when did you marry your husband?
Alan and I met in 1980. And then we dated for umpteen years. And then June 29th, 1991, we married. And he was one of those guys that what they call hard to get. But anyhow, we dated, and then we began to, care for each other. He has 2 daughters. I have 2 daughters and a son. And so the families kind of came together. He was working at that time for Montgomery Ward, and working long hours. And of course, I was working for Gates Barbecue. And so we would kind of meet and see each other. And we began to spend a lot of time with each other. And we got married. And then after getting married, I brought him over into my world because I was very engaged with the community. And so he became, people sometimes would call him Mr. Williams. And that part he didn't like too well. But we have become such great friends. He left there, went to the Nelson Atkins. He retired from the Nelson Atkins back in April of 90, it was April 2009. And what happened was he had a massive stroke, and he's in a wheelchair now. So he goes to a center, but he's a very smart man, just real smart man. And all my work that I've done while I was in the political arena, while I was working for Gates Barbecue, he was always a part of our lives. And so we've just become very, very good friends. Okay, I went to UMKC, and I had the opportunity to actually meet, I can't think of the person's name there, but after going there, I got connected with Kaufman, and was doing a lot of work there. And so they learned that I had this love for community. And at that time, the Kaufman Foundation was very interested in education for the school system. And so it was a whole, a lot of us, the Hall family and the Don family, and so I guess it was about 20 of us, and they gave us this opportunity to attend Harvard University, and so I went there. It was like, I think I was there probably 6 weeks, and learned about education and how to take the city and become part of the city, how to take education and make it part of your agenda. And I got a chance to get all the accolades that you get, from attending. And it was one of those experiences that was very dear to me. Now, a lot of people feel as though, going to Harvard is a real big deal, and it is. But one of the things that I learned from just having to be there, that you had to have your ducks lined up. You had to be ready to learn. And it was really, I've got this big book that I had, that I still have from Harvard. And what they did was they kind of brought me in with the young people that had gone and got their degrees and all of that. And they were really impressed with the work that I brought to the table. So I kind of became one of the leaders there at the school, and then came back here and then got more engaged with the Kauffman Foundation. And then I began, my work in the community became stronger because I was able to go out and have workshops in the various schools, not just on the Missouri side, but also on the Kansas side as well.
Okay. When you were a city councilwoman, what did you do?
Well, working for the community, I lived on 27 in Troost, and again, I had met the Hall family, and one of the young men there, we were in some leadership classes together, and so he recommended me to the Hall family, and so I started working with, there's, right now the school district is there, but at that time it was the Wonder Bread Company, and we had the opportunity to work with the community. On one side was the Beacon Hill neighborhood, and on the other side was Longfellow, and so they had never had people that lived on the west side of Troost come to the east side of Troost. So there was a white lady. She was probably 90-some years old. And when we started working together, she wanted to really get to know the people that live. And I mean, you're talking about a street, Troost Avenue, that separated the black community from the white community. So for the first time, we did what we call the Hands Across Troost. And she came in the middle of Troost, and we had the oldest black woman from Beacon Hill come, and they held hands, and we had candles and all of this. And so we continued to work there. We had lots of problems with a place called Creston Place Apartments. And so I worked for the Kansas City Neighborhood Alliance, and they allowed me to become leader. So every week I would go there and I would bring all these people together, the halls and the various places that are in the community, the neighborhood groups, and we would talk about how we're going to make Troost a place where it would not be the dividing line, for the city of Kansas City, Missouri. And so, for whatever reason, I started working with neighborhoods in the Northland, west area, east and all. And so my boss said to me once, we would like to see you run for office. And, and my history for running for office was always negative. I didn't like how people portrayed the political arena. And so I never had a desire to, become an elected official. And at that time, it was very hostile in Kansas City. And again, that's why I like to emphasize the color of the skin has nothing to do with your capabilities and what you can do, because I just happened to have someone that was black that was in that position, but didn't really want me to change or to help improve my own community. And so I decided that that would be something that I would pray about and I would talk to my husband about. So I came home, I talked to my husband about it, and I said, there's lots of people want me to run for office, and And I started doing my research and finding out what do, a city council person does. And of course, I realized that they make, the laws for the city of Kansas City. They are really, legislators, and that there are 12 city council members, 6 at large, 6 in district, and as a mayor. And the mayor is just one vote, and then all of the others. So there's 13 people that are making laws for the city of Kansas City, Missouri. And about that time, it was about 435,000 people in Kansas City. And so, I was just thinking about this work, and just I started going to meetings and watching the city council members and how they would conduct the business of the city. And then I decided, after in prayer, meeting with my family, and there were so many segments of people started coming to me and said, yes, you can do it, and we'll help you. And there was a man named David Stanley who ran Payless Cashway at that time, kind of took me on his wings and began to help me, along with the Don families and with the Hall families, and we started raising money. And so I was really scared because there was a lot of problems that were going on in the community at that time. We kind of just had a lot of killings with prostitutes, and there was just a lot going on. So anyway, I said, okay. I said, I'm going to do this. And I went and met with my boss. And at that time, the people that started the Kansas Neighbor Alliance were the Hall family back in 1979. So I was able to go, and we had our board meetings at 7 o'clock in the morning. So I went in, and then I talked to them, and I asked them what was their pleasure. I said, what do you think? Do you think that I could win? And they said, yes, you can win, and we will help you win. And so I started, going to various business meetings on this side of truth, and trying to get support, and just making little speeches and talking about the work I had done for families with the Kansas Neighbor Alliance, how I was able to help, myself and others. And so December 1994, I took leave of absence from Kansas City Neighbor Alliance. I had about 4 months of compensatory time and vacation time. So I took that time, and the board was very concerned that I was not going to be able to take care of myself, and my family. And but what happened was I was living at 27 in Troost, and the apartments in 27 in Troost are funded partially by the city. Because I was there, it was a conflict. So they said to me, well, you might want to think about, not being able to vote on things that affect, these areas. And I said, oh no, I can't do that. So anyway, to make a long story short, that's when I started looking for housing, and that's how we got here in December of 96. But to back up a little bit, there were many, many meetings, there were many debates, and the issues, I was much aware of them because I worked with families from all walks of life, and I was able to learn from all of those families. And when I decided to run in the primary of March of 95, I lost with 1,000 votes, and I was devastated. And then I remembered about organizing, because when I was in Mississippi, I knew about organizing. I knew about knocking on doors. I knew about making my agenda known. So what I did was I got a group of people, and we started knocking on doors. And we went out, and then when we came back in that April of 95, I won a number of over 1,000 votes, and then I became the elected official for the 3rd District at that time, which was encompassed where the Hallmark, not Hallmark, but where the Walmart is now, was the eastern boundary. Of course, Truce was the western boundary, and then 9th Street was the northern boundary, and the southern boundary, 41st Street. And of course, now the district has really enlarged quite a bit because we lost so much, of the population. And one of the things about when you lose population, those individuals have to pay taxes. So as you lose population, they call it redistricting. And so that's what happened. We started enlarging the district. So that's how I became in the political arena and started working. And then, of course, my second term, I had lots of challenges because I wasn't doing what people wanted me to do. There were people that kind of had bought off certain individuals, and that was not something that I was going to tolerate because I happened to have been part of that. I wanted to really help people. In the organization for the city of Kansas City, Missouri, you have citizens at the top, then you have judges, then you have the mayor and the council. And what I wanted to do was to empower the citizens so that they would know who to select as elected officials, but more importantly, how they will become better in their own neighborhoods, and how they could become part of the solution versus the problem. And so my second term, I ran, and the first term I worked with Emmanuel Cleaver for 4 years, and my third terms was Mayor Burns. And I had a glorious time with both of those mayors. I was very well trusted. I was placed in positions that I could never imagine. I had the opportunity to do bi-state work with other states, but more importantly with Kansas and Missouri. And I began to work with the FBI Academy. I was selected for that. I also was one of the people that helped with Union Station. My name is there on that paper as well. And so there was so many opportunities that I had. And now what I do is I work with other elected officials. I had the pleasure of working with Quinton to help him get elected, and a number of others, Brandon, just various people that I felt had a sense of care for other people. And so now I'm delighted to say that I have the ability to help make a difference, not in the seat, but sitting beside the person that's in the seat.
What would you say to the youth today?
Get involved. You are precious. You are the present. Oftentimes we say you're the future, but you're the present as well. And I know that our world is in good hands with you. I can see in my own grandchildren how smart they are. The deal is that me and others like me have to be able to pass the baton to you and begin teaching you those things that you need to know. And you, the youth, be able to receive those things. Prepare yourself well. There are many things that I would do differently as a young person if I had known. There are a lot of steps that I wish that some older person or family member would have told me how important it was for me to go ahead and go to college or to do these things that I find myself in now. And so for my own grandchildren, what's important is that I continue to tell them about character. What you do will affect you the rest of your life. About respect, making sure that you respect yourself first. Stay out of trouble. Do not allow yourself to run with people that is going to make your life difficult for you. You be the one to pull them over to your side. Be a young man or woman of God. Your spirit has to be in such a way that you can determine what right and wrong. Listen to your parents. And if you don't have parents to listen to, find an adult, a caring adult that will help you. There are lots of people out here that love you, that care for you. Make good choices. Make certain, that you are in a position where you begin to accept yourself, accept other people, respect your elders. That is so important because now as I look at, television, you look at the people that are running for office and the first thing that we talk about is their age. Well, that age is wisdom, and I want to give it to you. I want to be someone that makes a difference in your life. And now I'm in the position now where I'm passing the baton, where I'm sitting beside you and I'm answering questions for you. So I need you to ask me, but then I need to step up too and give, because that's what my job is to make your life better.
And how would you like to be remembered?
I would like to be remembered as someone that cared, as a woman of God, someone that loves my family, someone that loves families, someone that's willing to sacrifice for other people. I would like to be remembered as a person that would go out of my way to help someone. And I would like for my children to emulate the life that I've left for them, to work hard, be strong. You know, good work ethics is so important. And remember who you lay with. And by that I mean align yourself with. Make sure that, you know, the people that you bring into your life, and that's what I've done once I've learned. I haven't always been that way. But the nice thing about it is that you have the ability every day to change for the better. So I would like to be remembered as an organizer, as a unificator, someone that will bring people together, you know, as a communicator, someone that care. I would like to be remembered as someone that makes a difference, you know, where I am, and that someone will look at me and call me up. And a lot of young people call me mama and grandmama. And it's, you know, some of my friends say, I wouldn't want that. But I love every moment. So I want to be remembered as a mama and a grandmama. I love the idea that somebody can look at me and say, you know, you make me think. You make me learn. You know, you remind me of my grandmama. I like that.